This is George Michail, creator of Night Terror, and you're listening to True North Country Comics Podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics Podcast, dedicated to celebrate Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. On this episode, I chat with George Michail about his new graphic novel, Night Terror, published by Renegade Arts Entertainment. Please like and subscribe to this website by hitting the subscribe button so you'll be notified about new podcast interviews and article posts. This podcast is available wherever podcasts are enjoyed. Please like, follow, and subscribe. Proudly hailing from Kelowna, British Columbia, George Michail is a lifelong aficionado of comics. From his early days sketching at the kitchen table with How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, to his foray into filmmaking and frequent appearances at comic conventions across North America, George has garnered acclaim for his published works and award-winning narratives. His previous work includes graphic novels such as Cover of Darkness, Resilient, Fantasy Quest, and more. For his newest graphic novel, Night Terror, published by Renegade Arts Entertainment, George is joined by artist Vinz El Tabanas, who brings a unique blend of creativity and technical skill. The story of Night Terror goes like this. When a startup goes on a team-building retreat at a secluded campground, the company's mascot goes on a killing spree. Described as part Friday the 13th and part Office Space, this murder mystery comic has been adapted into a feature-length movie that is slated for release in 2027. So, without further ado, here's my chat with George Michail about his new graphic novel, Night Terror, published by Renegade Arts Entertainment. So, George Michail, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Hey, thanks for having me on, John.
I appreciate it. We haven't chatted in a long time, so it's good to catch up, that's for sure. So right off the bat, I've got to ask you, what are you reading today?
I'm reading Firepower by Robert Kirkman. Yeah, I'm digging that. It's kind of giving me like Iron Fist vibes.
Cool, good stuff. Well, we're here talking about your latest graphic novel, Night Terror. So I wonder if you could tell me, what is this story all about?
Night Terror is kind of like The Office meets Friday the 13th. It's about a startup company that goes on a team building retreat at a secluded campground, and the company's mascot, a knight, shows up and starts picking them off one by one.
So was it as simple as that? Like, what if scenario? You were watching something and said, hey, wouldn't it be really cool if this happened?
I had a job. I was working for this company called Comic Stream, which was like a startup that was creating original comic books for an app. That was the only time I ever worked in an office, and I had that job. And after my time there, I just found the whole world of office politics to be like super interesting, and I loved the TV show The Office. And then I love Scream and camp slashers like Friday the 13th. So I wanted to do kind of murder mystery and kind of put all these different ideas together and see how it would shake out.
There you go. Yeah, that's typically the way things happen, where you go, what if? And certainly being in office, that can generate all sorts of ideas if you're bored out of your mind, I guess. That's for sure. What about your collaborators? Can you talk a little bit about who helped you with your book?
I write it with Andrew Buckley. Andrew's an author. He's most well known for Hair in All the Wrong Places, which was a novel published by Scholastic. Andrew and I have been friends now for almost 10 years. We had a movie review show together, and I just asked him if he wanted to work on this project with me, and he came on board and really brought a lot to it. And then the artist is Vinz El Tabanas. Vinz, an incredible talent from Montreal. We had previously worked together on my comic book series called Resilient. He's amazing. He's such a talented dude, and so I knew I wanted to work with him again on Night Terror.
Cool. Maybe you could talk about the collaboration process, because for each creator, it's a little bit different. Was it something where you first came up with a script and said, okay, go do the illustrating, or was it a little bit of back and forth?
Well, this project's kind of had an interesting life. So I started working on it like 5-6 years ago, and I wrote the first issue as a comic book, and I was really feeling the characters, but I also had ambitions of turning it into a movie. And so Andrew and I got together after that first issue, and we wrote a screenplay together. And so we wrote the Night Terror movie adaptation, which we've made a movie now based off of it. It comes out, we'll be hitting film festivals this fall with it. We had the screenplay finished, But then while we were working to raise money to produce the movie, we were like, well, let's finish this comic book version of this story. And so Andrew and I finished the rest of the graphic novel. And then we approached Vinz and, we sent him our kind of full scripts, and Vinz started working away on issues. And it worked out really nicely too, because like we had this visual representation of the movie while we were filming the movie. The graphic novel's been done for a little while. It's just coming out now. It's available to order into bookstores or comic book stores. Yeah, so that was kind of the process of how it came about.
You've got to admit that a screenplay is very different from a script for a graphic novel. Were there any challenges?
Yeah, it wasn't so hard going from the first issue of the comic book into the screenplay, because like we were able to keep all that stuff and maybe expand on it a bit. But going from the screenplay back into the comic book format, you're limited for space. And like in a movie, you can have someone talk for 30 seconds or a minute, and it's not a big deal. But to put all that dialogue into a comic book, a minute worth of speaking would be a couple pages of your book. So you really have to be concise. So it was a challenge to cut things out or to make things tighter when we were going into the comic book format.
Do you use illustration as a way of sort of a shortcut to get some of those scenes compressed together?
Yeah, you always kind of want to show, not tell all the time, right?
So, George, how was it working with Renegade Arts Entertainment as a publisher of Night Terror?
It's been fantastic. I really like the team there. Alexander Finbow, the editor-in-chief, has been very supportive, and they help get the books out into the world. And I've met some of the other creatives there, and just lots of good people just making comic books. So I like them. It's been a good working relationship so far.
I understand you do have the movie coming out later this year, but what plans do you have to promote your book this year? Are there any other plans besides this podcast to promote it?
I'm doing a few podcasts. I'm touring around the country. I've got a show in Calgary, Fan Expo Calgary. I'll be in Prince George. And then I'm hoping to make it out to Toronto, Denver, Anaheim later this year. So hitting the convention circuit. And then I have some marketing efforts. I built a list of bookstores and comic book stores, and I email them. And then I'm also hoping, with the movie, our goal is to premiere at Fantasia Film Fest in Montreal. The movie stars Catherine Isabelle from Ginger Snaps and Colin Mockery from Whose Line Is It Anyways, Osric Chow from Supernatural, and it's turned out really fantastically. So it's kind of two things. Like we're hoping that the comic book will get word out on the movie, but also, when we start doing festival screenings and stuff, that word of mouth on the movie will help inspire people to go out and ask for the graphic novel.
Sure. Now, here's a wild thought. If there's a main villain in your comic book, would it make sense to have someone dress up and walk around as this crazy creature in terms of promotion, or would that be pushing the envelope?
No, that's fun too. Yeah, I like that idea. We can have the knights show up. We've got these great swords too and shields, and we have a morning star, and the morning star is like, it's foam, right? So but it looks real, and you can actually like smack people with it.
That would be kind of fun. Have your setup of your own jousting event or something like that. That's for sure. So sounds like you've got a lot on the go there, but I've got to ask you then, now that we've been talking about Night Terror, what's next for you? Can you talk about your next project?
I'm working on an anthology. It's being organized by Austin Janowski. He's a writer, artist. He's worked on like Iron Man and X-Men. And I met him in Chicago at a convention last year. He invited me to be part of his zombie anthology. And so I wrote this cool story. It's about a father and a daughter, and she's a goaltender, and he's taking her to her game, and the zombie outbreak happens, and they have to defend her team using like hockey equipment and like a Zamboni and stuff. So that's super fun. And it's being illustrated by Stan Yak, who works on Ninja Turtles, and he's just such an amazing artist. So I'm really excited to see how that one comes together.
Sounds exciting. What is it about horror that fascinates people and yourself as a genre?
Well, I think it's the aspect of, getting the blood pumping and the fear and the adrenaline, but at the same time, you're safe. You're at the movie theater or you're on your couch. You're okay. Kind of like a roller coaster. You're getting those big drops and the big thrills and turns and twists, but ultimately deep down that you're safe. I like that kind of mix.
Sounds good. Well, George, with everything that you have going on with Night Terror and the new movie and other projects, where do you recommend people go online to find out more about you?
You can find me on Instagram. That's probably the best place. I'm the_George_Michail. And you can also ask to be my friend on Facebook. I'll be your friend. And I have a website. It's just georgemichail.com.
Very good. Well, George, those are all the questions I have for you, but is there anything I didn't ask that you want to get across in this interview?
If anybody's thinking about making comic books, I'd like to just encourage them to do it. It's a really fun medium to work in, and I've been doing it now for about 8 years, and it's doable. Like, it's hard. It's a lot of hard work, but get out there and chase your passions and tell your story if you have a story to tell. And also, like, if you're thinking of working in film, maybe start with a comic book, because movies are like, there's so many moving pieces and you're working with dozens and dozens of people and it's a lot of money. Whereas comic book, you can tell your story with a small team and really like make something great. So just kind of parting words, I'd say, just like follow your passions. And if storytelling is that, maybe look at making your comic, because it's a lot of fun to do. And I've just had the time of my life making these books, and Night Terror is a fun read. And I've been working on it for 5 years, and I'm just really excited to get it out there into the world.
Thanks to George for the chat. You can discover more about George Michail at georgemichail.com and on Instagram at _George_Michail. You can discover more about Night Terror at renegadeartsentertainment.com. And thank you for tuning in to the True North Country Comics podcast. I invite you to visit the True North Country Comics website to listen to even more conversations with creators about making comic books and graphic novels. I encourage you to subscribe via the website so you'll be notified about new podcast interviews and article posts. This podcast is available wherever podcasts are enjoyed. Please like, follow, and subscribe. You can follow along True North Country Comics on most social media platforms, and you're encouraged to send any and all feedback to John at truenorthcountrycomics.com. Thanks for tuning in, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics Podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2026.